can't remember a time in my life when I didn't want to be a marine biologist. I blame it all on Jacques Cousteau, that movie Jaws, and the little boy in that TV show Flipper. Man, I was so jealous of that kid, and I wanted that to be my life. But unfortunately, that wasn't my reality. You see, I came from a troubled childhood. I came from a broken home. My parents got divorced when I was 4. And I lived with my mom, who loved me very much. But, you know, she loved me very much. Sorry, listen. And I'm freaking out here. She loved me very much, but we were dirt poor, right? So at the age of 16, I thought I could do better on my own. So I got a job. I dropped out of school, even though I was making straight A's at the time. And Mom had no clue I had dropped out of school. So when she found out, she was pissed. She came and got me. She sent me off to live with my dad in Aurora, Colorado, just outside of Denver. And that was my first epiphany, right? A second chance. And I was not going to screw this one up, right? Unfortunately, when I went to my new high school, all those A's I'd had changed to F's. So I went to all my teachers and I said, will you give me the grade I earn moving forward and forget about those F's I transferred in with? Well, believe it or not, they all agreed. And in a parallel effort, I started playing sports and I ran for senior class president. The problem is nobody had a clue who I was, right? So I spent the first couple weeks there in Colorado in my dad's basement in the evenings making all these huge giant posters that I plastered all over the school. And I made a bunch of these little buttons, right? Hundreds of them that had a picture of Uncle Sam on it saying, I want you to vote for Patrick Rice. And I'll never forget, I was in my typing class in the morning, just during my junior year, just before Christmas break, when the morning announcements came on. And the voice on the intercom said, our next senior class president is Patrick Rice. I exploded from my chair. I was so excited, right? The guy behind me is like, why are you so happy? I said, because I'm Patrick Rice, right? You know, nobody knew who I was. So I became senior class president. I lettered in varsity track and football, and I ended up graduating with a 4.0. Mission accomplished, right? Yeah, I was ready to go on and realize that dream of becoming a marine biologist. But I always had this little chip on my shoulder, right? This internal sense of frustration, like somehow I had been robbed of my childhood. But I just choked those feelings down, and I went off to college at the University of Texas at Austin. Hook 'em horns, woo! So after that, after I graduated, I joined the United States Peace Corps. And I was assigned to the South Pacific Islands of Fiji. So before I could go to Fiji, though, I had to get some training. So they sent me to Thailand. And I spent about 6 weeks at the Asian Institute of Technology, just outside of Bangkok, Thailand. And I was there to learn how to farm fish, which was my mission in the Peace Corps. And it was during that time, during that training, we went throughout the northeast of Thailand. And it was then that I saw true poverty and desperation. And I realized my childhood wasn't so bad after all. And I started to lose that little chip on my shoulder and that sense of entitlement that I had. So after we completed our training, me and the group that I was with went to Fiji. And you might be asking yourself right now, why does Fiji have a Peace Corps mission, right? Well, you got to understand, Fiji is made of volcanic mountains, right? And during the rainy season, rivers will flood, roads will wash out, and the villages deep in the interior get isolated from the ocean, which is their only true source of protein. So it was my mission to go into these villages and teach them how to farm fish so they would have a sustainable source of protein. So, but as you can imagine, trying to build a fish pond on the side of a volcanic mountain comes with its own unique challenges, right? So we had to get some in-country specific training. We went to this little village up in the highlands of this area called Ra. And this one village that we went to, it was so high in the mountains, you'd wake up in the morning and the clouds were in the valley below. I remember one time there was actually a shooting star that went over, and it's like I could reach out and touch it almost. It looked like a firework, less of a shooting star. There were embers trickling down, and it was really amazing. Anyway, during this training we found an area that was kind of flat, and it had good clay soil, and it was close to a stream. So we went and we actually temporarily dammed up the stream. We used bamboo as our PVC pipe, and we diverted water from the stream to this flat area, and we soaked the ground. While the ground was soaking, we cut a 55-gallon drum in half and tied that to the village ox. And then myself and several of the village kids actually laid on the drum while somebody switched the ox, and that was our bulldozer. We dug 4 fish ponds up there that way. That training was just really amazing, and with these new skills now, it was time to take my information and knowledge to my area, which was the Ba province on the western side of the main island of Fiji called Viti Levu. Anyway, I had a quaint little government house there, and I had a little office in the Marine Fisheries Department. And it wasn't long before I got a message from a village in my area up in the highlands called Navala. They wanted some fish. I was excited. As I hopped in a village carrier, we went up to Navala, and I met with the chief, and he showed me a couple of old fish ponds that they'd had that were completely unkept, right? So we made a plan to resurrect the ponds. I asked them to fill the ponds with water, and I asked the villagers to get the manure, gather the manure from their village ox, throw it in a burlap sack, and throw those sacks into the fish ponds. I explained how that manure would act as fertilizer for the pond water and make it nice and ndroka, which is in Fijian the way you say green, right? So I asked the chief to let me know when the water was ndroka, and I would arrange a delivery of little tilapia fingerlings, called fingerlings because they're about the size of your finger. This was the species that we intended to stock in these ponds. So the chief was happy, the villagers seemed happy, and I went back to my home in Ba. And about a month later, I got a message from Navala that the ponds were ready. So again, excited, I hopped in the carrier. At that time, I called the government hatchery in Suva, which was on the other side of the island from where I was, and I arranged for a delivery of 500 tilapia fingerlings. The day the driver got to me, he had 2 big bags of fish in the back of his truck. They were plastic bags about the size of a standard pillowcase, and each one was filled up with about this much water, and each one had 250 fish in it. And it was filled with pure oxygen. It looked like a giant version of what you might expect to get at a pet store if you went to go get some fish, right? Anyway, I hopped in this truck. We started on our journey, and we crossed 2 low water crossings. We were just several miles away from Navala when it started to rain. The driver looked at me and said, "I got to turn around." He said, "I'm not getting stuck up here for months." And I was like, "Are you kidding? I mean, it's just right there." But he said no. He was adamant. He turned around. And luckily for me, I noticed just off to the left of the road there was a little grass hut. So I said, "Hang on a second." I hopped out of the truck and I started to walk towards this grass hut. And as I got there, I was met by this huge Fijian guy. And I used my best Fijian and I explained to him the situation. Well, it just so turned out that he was the brother of the chief of the village I was going to, right? And he said he had a horse and he was ready to help. So I grabbed the fish out of the truck. We strapped him to the horse. I told the driver he could go. And at that point, the brother told me if we followed the road along the top of the mountain, it was still several miles to Navala. But he had a shortcut. We could go down the side of this mountain and up the other side, and Navala was less than a mile away. I said, "Great, let's go, man." We headed down. When we got to the bottom, it was raining so hard. The brother looked at me and he said, "I don't think I can get my horses up the side of this mountain." I was like, "Are you kidding? I mean, it's just right there." But, I understood. He didn't want his horses to get injured. So frustrated, I looked at the top of this mountain. I looked down at my feet. I grabbed my Teva sandals off. I strapped them to my belt loop. I took the fish off of the horse and strapped those around my shoulder. I thanked the brother for his help. And I went barefooted up the side of this mountain with the fish. When I got to the top, there it was, Navala in all its glory. And I stood there on the edge, and across the courtyard was the chief's hut. So I started to walk towards the chief's hut. And as I'm walking across this courtyard, I noticed these little heads start popping out of all the little grass huts that were lining the margin of the courtyard there. And the little kids came out and they started dancing around me and they started saying, "Kai Valangi, Kai Valangi," which means the white guy's here, the white guy's here. And so it was really cute, and I felt really honored. I met with the chief. We stocked the ponds, 250 in each pond. And luckily for me, the next day, it stopped raining, and I was able to get back down to my home in Ba. But before I left, I told the chief, let me know when the fish are about the size of your hand, which was considerably larger than mine. And I said that would be a really good time to harvest. So back in Ba, about 4 months later, I got a message from Navala that said, Ika levu, means big fish. It was time to harvest. I was so excited. Once again, I arranged for a carrier to go up there, and by the time I got there, all the neighboring villages in the area had heard about this and joined in, and there was this huge celebration. Everybody helped with the harvest. We drained the pond, harvested all the fish, and they took the tilapia and they fried it, right? And then they served that in coconut milk in a dish called Ika Vaka Lolo, fish and coconut milk. It was wonderful. So they had this big giant grass hut that they used as a church. So that's where we had the feast. And we sat on woven mats, crisscross applesauce, right? I can't do that anymore. And we started to eat. And we ate. And I ate so much, I got stuffed. And when I couldn't take any more, I remember leaning back against one of the tree trunks that looks a lot like these things here that was holding up the side of the church. And I watched. And people were smiling, laughing, eating. Kids were playing. One kid threw some fish at another kid. Another kid returned fire. The next thing I know, this huge food fight erupts. There's fish and coconut milk flying all over the place. And I thought to myself, wow, I made this happen. And that's when it hit me. My paradise within emerged. My epiphany. The realization that one person can make a difference, no matter how hard or impossible that task may seem. My vision, I knew exactly what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I never wanted that feeling to change. I wanted to see that joy in children's faces. I wanted to use my skills and my knowledge to help make this world a better place. You see, we are not parasites on this planet, but we have the capacity to be beautiful human creatures and caring managers of this world. I learned something else too. The world doesn't owe me anything. In fact, I am blessed, truly blessed, to come from the greatest country on earth, where a dream fueled by tenacity, a little bit of luck, and educational opportunities could transform a poor, underprivileged high school dropout into a PhD marine biologist, the chief science and research officer at the greatest college in the world, in the greatest place in the world, the Florida Keys. So believe me when I say, this world, it's not too late, okay? We all have the capacity to do this. We all have to just look with better eyes, because it's just right there. Thank you.